Yo, welcome to the hole where there's no depth too deep. This is where the woke stay woke and the sleepers can't sleep. This is what we talking about, y'all. License to parent. So we stepping into this future society, right? That a lot of people fear, and others secretly believe that this could eventually happen. Let me tell y'all what's going on here. We're gonna talk about a conversation where people might believe what should happen and what could be dangerous if it did happen. We're talking about becoming a parent, but requiring a license. Not a hospital bracelet, not a birth certificate, a license. This is where the government get to determine who is mentally, financially, emotionally, and psychologically fit to raise a child. Miss Landis, I need y'all all to
Okay.
introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Elandis, and I'm from the DFW area and healthcare professional. And my opinion on this subject is I don't think we serve a government that's really suitable to be making those kind of decisions on who should have license to have a child and who shouldn't. It's the sad thing is some people should be required to go through some kind of mental, psychological screening process. But who are we to set that tone? Who are we to set that standard? Because then when you start going there, you're going to go down a rabbit hole for one thing. If to say, well, if you're not financially fit, if you don't have this kind of educational background, and to be honest, some of your best people has come from low income families, where they're financially challenged and things of that nature. But I think when it comes to finances, it would be nice to have something in place to help people instead of hoarding information, to teach people how to be financially fit. For single parents, I think that, maybe have something set up so that, okay, let's, give some money managing skills, classes and whatnot of that nature, because everybody is not going to go to college for further education, but everybody should be able to have their basic needs met. And so I think when it comes to the government setting standards, the first thing they need to do is set in place where everybody can have livable wages.
But what about if you got somebody that's say somebody always in debt, they always they file for bankrupt, they can't keep up with bills. Do you think that's the type of person that's supposed to be out here raising kids?
Well, as a single mother raising 5 kids, I can say that, I've had to make decisions, and I've, had situations where, I might get behind and whatnot. But my thing was to always, keep going. And once I became spiritually mature, I learned to trust God for my provision. And when you can truly say, God, I need you to put me in a position for this. I need elevation. I need increase. I need, all these things. And I'm just speaking for myself, because that really changed everything for me when I stopped trying to do it in my own strength and relying on God. And he literally did everything that I asked him to do, because I was intentional, I was specific, and just with the high school education. But in my career, I am certified in what I do. But I can honestly say that he did exactly what I asked him to do. And a lot of times we don't understand that it's not just, you can rely on degrees, you can rely on higher education to make more money. But you also have to understand that that is not the answer for everybody. Because the Bible always tells us, the poor will always be amongst us. But even the poor should be able to live good. And I don't think that to me, it's a heart thing. Do you have a heart to raise kids? What kind of value do you put in them? What can you instill in them that will make them a productive citizen? I don't think that it should be classified as in your income as for whether or not you should be a parent. But the question is, can you be a good parent? What are your values? What are your morals? What demons are you battling? Because there are some people that really shouldn't have kids, and
Right,
they do.
right. Lashika, you ready to speak on this subject? I gotta ask you something. You want to make your introduction?
Hi, I'm Lashika, Texas area.
Okay. Well, I gotta ask you this question. When I was listening to Miss Alandis talk, and she was talking about even poor people should have a good life with kids. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, so I feel like when you having kids should not have anything to do with money. Definitely nothing to do with the government because it's not most, if not all, decisions from the government are poor to me, and so poor decisions,
Hmm.
and that goes into dictatorship. If you allow the government to control and say yes and no to these things, which that's a whole nother conversation. And money. So who dictates as to who says what that value is? Whether that's if it's 60,000 under is considered poor or what? I mean, who sets that? And so why are they able to set that value as to who is considered that poor to have a child or only rich? I don't think rich nor poor have anything to do with it. There are plenty of kids that have come from wealthy families and they don't even have a relationship with their parents. So that money is just being able to afford some of those things. Again, things. And then raising a child is just not only you being able to provide basic things, which there are a lot of people that are considered poor in this country, but they are able to provide basics. And then it goes back to what Missy Landis shared as far as your heart. Because at the end of the day, the child will remember more about the quality time you spent with them, or just things how you loved on them, the affection you provided. So none of those things I feel like should have any weigh in on that money or you know education. Definitely, I don't even feel like education should be a reliance because as we see now with a lot of the schools and a lot of the loans and all the things they're having to pay back because the educational system wasn't good, that the chosen college that the person chose. So that means nothing. Anyone can actually go to a college. Doesn't mean you will learn. Doesn't mean you will come out with exponential knowledge or anything like that.
Okay.
So that makes no way in my opinion, neither.
What about the emotional stability? What we talking about? Like, raising a poor child is damaging to, like, some people. They find a success route out of being poor. They make something out of nothing. You hear about it all the time. I came from the bottom and then they reach the top. But what about the emotional stability of a child who has to suffer with watching everybody around them have things that they can't quite acquire because they're dealing with poor parenting? What about those children right there? Should it be fair to them? Is that fair to them that they have a parent that's not able to provide? What would licensed parenting do for that?
Being licensed doesn't mean anything either. I mean, we see that in professions. You can take a test and get a license doesn't mean you're good at it. So being licensed of you, that's just something on paper that someone devised this test or devised whatever means that they say that's how you get that license, which still does not 100% determine your character. You as a human being able to care for your child, whether it's financially, emotionally, physically, none of that. So I definitely am against a license in the first place. It makes no sense. And as far as, once, people that may have come from Port, yes, it's, unfortunate, but also everyone, no matter your status as, your career or your finance, you need and should experience being humble in your life. So there are a lot of arrogant, pompous people that have not been humbled yet. And you coming, and a lot of times, some, the kids that come from a poor background are more humble because they know what it's like. They don't know what privilege is, so they are more humble. And that is extremely important, not only in life, because life will humble you. No matter your financial backing, your educational backing, nothing. Life can humble you. And so what are you going to do when you get humbled? That's the thing. And not only that, that goes into your beliefs. So kind of what Missy Linda shared as far as God. Okay, if you think that because you have money and can do any and whatever you want, you have not been humbled, but you forget that there is a higher power, and that's God who can humble you, and you forget that that's who the source is. So a lot of times when people don't have nothing, that's why they rely more on God, because that's where that source come from. They know what it feels like to not have nothing and then get something. So what if everything crashes today? And money means nothing to how people obtain the basics. So right. People who know what it's like to put, little scraps here and there are able to survive.
Right.
As opposed to people who are so privileged and were only used to having someone serve them. So that's why I feel like it could go either way.
Out of all of us among the room, who would be for licensed parenting? Especially if it came to specific situations, like show of hands, who would be for it and who would be against it? Anybody for it? I say certain situations. I'm gonna just be option B, y'all option A, all right? But I say certain situations it should be licensed parenting. If it was to come in play, it would be a reason why I would agree with it. But what would be your reasons to not go with licensed parenting?
One of my biggest reasons for not going with licensed parenting is when you think about this. Think about background checks. And you have to pass a background check. How often do we see people commit horrible crimes that can pass background checks? Because background checks can only determine what you have been caught doing. It does not determine what you are capable of doing.
True.
And so that is the biggest problem with licensing. Is it just like giving, it's like you're doing an in-depth background check. But if I have malice in my heart, if I have evil in my heart, you can't see that. That's not going to be detected. And so now we're blind faith. You know what I mean? You can only go by what I've done. See, I've only been to jail for what I've done. You know what I mean? If I went to jail.
Right.
And so there's a lot of criminals that's never been in the penal institution. And so they can get by. They can go get federal jobs, healthcare jobs, working around kids. And these are people that are involved in child sex trafficking. They running all kinds of, illegal activity over here and whatnot, but they've never been caught. And they can pass a background check. And that is the problem that we run into if we're going to say we're going to start licensing people, to have kids. Because now you still got people with bad heart, bad intentions, evil thoughts, evil ways that are licensed to carry out whatever it is they fulfill in their heart to do. And so that's my opinion on it.
And what about yours, Miss Lashika? What's your opinion? What's your reasoning for not agreeing with the licensed parenting?
Because we can't depend on AI and we can't depend on human. So, and I say that because either a human is going to have the AI create this criteria as to who passes or not, and the human is going to create it. So I mean, neither are reliable. So who, like, why would we depend on that?
Right.
I mean, there are plenty of things that we that human and AI have done, provided as far as information, and as we see today, people have licenses.
Okay.
And they are not. So they should not hold those licenses. So why is it any different with child care or raising a child, which to me is more precious than, I don't know, this engineer that I don't know, whoever that may have, or a nurse that may have passed boards. So in their life, they are taking care of people's lives, and there are a lot of people that should not have license. So why should that be determination as to someone being able to care for a child?
If I'm looking at it on the note of I'm agreeing with it, we would have to see that it'd have to be something to do with child education. You said that don't matter, but what about parenting systems, support systems, mental health screenings, just to make sure this child is right? Or what about just making sure that child is in a safe environment, like at all times, and not just just like a checkup here and there for a licensed parent would be something like, because you got people who adopt, right? Wouldn't the difference be the same thing?
It's funny that you mentioned that, because that's what I wanted to hit on.
Okay.
To become a licensed foster parent, you go through classes. You have to do a very thorough background check. They they inspect your homes. They do all of these things before licensing you to say that you are qualified to be able to raise someone else's children. How often do we see that in these homes, these kids are molested? They are abused. They are going through worse things in the foster homes than they dealt with that made them end up there in the first place. And these are licensed foster parents. And so that it goes back to, you can never know the heart of a person, because they did everything that they were supposed to do in order to get licensed.
At what point does protection become control? We want to protect kids from being treated wrong. We want to protect kids from being raised wrong and being put in the wrong situations. And Miss Atlantis touched on the best part when she said they have it better at the home that they left before they go into, before they go into a foster home, right? So I'm going to ask you this right here. With licensed parenting, should it be like mandated therapy? Should it be something where, they got mandatory schooling? Should even vaccines be something? Or should it be punishments for parents over child crimes? You get what I'm saying? Like, if your child commit a crime, should a licensed parent even be punished for that?
Well, I think if you're going to... Oh, go ahead, Lashika. I think if you're going to set something in place like that, the first thing would be to... say, for instance, if you're going to require parents to have license, it should only be after you've done something that has really done either physical or emotional harm to your children. At that point, there should be a process set in place that maybe you should have to be licensed to become a parent.
I like that.
Yeah, and that way you can lose your license if you do not maintain. But at the same time, you have to make sure that, I feel like the school should also have something in place for kids to feel safe to report certain things as well. We've gotten away from really focusing on the health of kids, and more everything is so state test that has nothing to do with what they're learning, because we see these standardized testing all the time where the focus is on this, and so now you have teachers teaching curriculums that are not really curriculums. It's something that they know they're teaching, programs that they know that kids are going to be tested on. There should be social workers in school where like if a teacher say, hey, I'm thinking something is going wrong with little Johnny over there, you want to just pull him in, talk to him and see what's going on. There's a lot of things that can be set in place if there was actual heart for, for these kids, their well-being, their mental stability, and all of those things. Because the teachers, the school deal with these kids as much as we do as parents.
Right.
They have them 5 days a week. We are with them 7 days a week, but only so many hours of the day. The
Right.
teachers have and they do have a burden of dealing with a lot, because you have a lot of parents that are not teaching their kids to go to school to learn, but they're going there and they're being disruptive. And a lot of times that behavior is a baseline for something else that's going on with them, but they don't have the proper people in place to talk to these kids, to try to get them the help that they need, to have them removed from homes that may need to be removed from. So I think that the focus really needs
Okay.
to be on government to have a heart for the people.
As opposed to licensed parenting, do you think eugenics would work? You know how the United States, a long time ago, they had forced sterilization laws, stuff like that. Do you think eugenics would work? Like if they stopped certain people from having kids, do you think that would be
Will it work? No. So let me put it very plain and simple. I am 200,000% against that whole thing.
okay?
Anything around that, because again, I don't trust nothing about the government. We've obviously sent people to prison and even killed people,
Right.
okay, in the chair that were innocent. So why would sterilization or anything else work? Or why would I trust them to know that that's the right choice to make? It's still, a lot of this is an infringement on people's rights. At the end of the day, as a human, I still want to have some rights. And just because of what, and depending on what a person may have done, doesn't. But there are certain things, I will say, that a person may have done 15 years ago doesn't have anything to do with them not being a good parent.
And that's on
So,
background. I like that. I like that.
and so that's why I'm like, that still doesn't make sense. There are people who, yes, they have done criminal things, okay?
Right.
As the law may say that are, felony, or may not, maybe misdemeanor, okay? But it's still
Right.
against the law. So what would make you think that because someone did something that was considered a felony, that they would not love their kids more
Right.
than the next person who has
Right.
no criminal record?
Now I'm
So
100%
it's
in
still,
agreement with that.
anything about parenting should never be up to the government, should never be up to any of these humans, because we all judge and we wrongly do so, and that's okay, because we are human. That's what's going to happen. And so as far as therapy, I think therapy is always good. We all go through things. I mean, this country is so different than many other countries.
Right.
So our life, the lifestyle, everything about it is always busy. Just so much. There's just so many things that may cause a person to get down, depressed, or feel hopeless. So I think therapy is good for any and everyone. And then as far as, if, the school system, as Miss Elandis shared, I mean, any resources will be helpful. I'm going to make this simple. We all know that any resources like that will not be enough. So going back to what Miss Elandis said regarding, like, if they had something happen and they should, then become licensed to be able to have, but I don't agree with that, only because that goes back to today. We have children, and some children have been taken from the homes and they're in the system. So that's the same thing, because people happen to do things to try to get their children back. I'm just totally against it, because it does, a lot of things doesn't make sense in trying to put criteria to a person being able to have the right to have their child and raise their child. Now, yes, there are certain acts and things that may happen, and yes, that parent or person should go through certain channels to, like what they do as far as the system getting their children back. But we all know we don't even have enough social workers. We don't have enough people to help to go to the homes to assess the homes, their lifestyle, their environment. We don't have enough people to even put the therapists in the schools. We don't have enough of that. We don't have enough resources, and I know. I mean, technically, in my mind, you should have enough money to be able to hire people, but in government, they're not going to do that. So then it goes back to money of who's paying for that.
So what about people who already have like a criminal background? Would you think that they should have to apply for a license to get kids?
It depends on what is your criminal background. Is your criminal background for abuse of children, sexual assault towards children, those things of that nature? That makes a big difference.
Definitely.
I'm really not for, how can I put it? As Ms. Sheikah stated, you don't want to put that in the hands of the wrong people to be able to make those decisions. Because when you start infringing on people's rights, you can get it wrong.
Right.
Like you said, you can literally get it wrong. And so you're putting us in a, well, not you're putting us, but we're in a position now where we're trying to play God.
Mm-hmm.
We're dictating and we're determining who can and who shouldn't have kids. And that shouldn't be the case. But we should have things in place that where kids are in a home where they are being abused, where they are being neglected, that we can remove them from them homes so that long suffering is not one of the things that they have to endure over an extensive period of time. I feel like the government really should, if they want to be involved in something, it really should be putting money back into the school systems. Hire more therapists. We know there's more than enough psychologists and psychiatrists who can't find jobs, but there are so many of those occupations that are needed, and it needs to be in the school system because, once again, that is the one place that the kids are. They're there as much as they are at home. And no, there's no one else that would have that kind of communication or contact with these kids that are suffering. There shouldn't be, when it comes to class and certain things, 9 times out of 10, most kids that are poor, they're in a poor environment. Right. It's not too many kids that are doing too much better than them in their area. I'll put it that way. And when you have something like that, there should be more things in place for them. There should be, like back in the day, that's what they had the Boys and Girls Club for.
Right.
So that the kids can get, the kids can get something. Somebody else can see the goodness in them and, be able to instill value, morals, and things of those nature. But you don't have that anymore. They really taken things out of the lower communities so that and started building really penal institutions because they really preparing a place for these kids. Okay, we know you don't have much and we don't really plan on putting much effort into you having any growth in your environment. So what we're going to do is instead of us putting money into the education system, we're all going to get together and we're going to put our money together and we're going to start privatizing prison systems. We're going to prepare a place for these kids to go because we don't intend for them to be productive. We don't intend for them to go to college. We don't intend for them to try to be anything because they're just going to become the victims of their environment. They're going to sell drugs. They're going to kill. They're going to shoot. They're going to do this. And it's sad. Yeah. Take the money out of prisons and put it back in the educational system, especially in the low income areas.
I like how you put that. That's well put. I got to say this right here. Everything you chimed in on, it resonated to make sense. But what about, because you said the therapists and all that, and that caught my attention. But what about the ones that's not? I'm gonna ask you this, Ms. Lasika, since Ms. Land is timed out right now again. What about the ones that's not fair, a fair therapist or even a fair social worker? Because even all social workers don't do their job correct. If we don't have fair social workers or we don't have fair therapists, then where do we go from there?
Well, two things off of that are one, we see that now with CPS systems.
Right.
A lot of the social workers are not there. They're not doing what is best on either end. And some people have a lot of thoughts as to how much they actually care in, and putting into their job.
Right.
And so it's happening already. And that just lets me know, I mean, because any profession, in all professions, there's somebody that don't care, and they're not doing what they should be doing. I do think that one of the things our social workers don't get paid much. I'll be honest.
Right.
If you look at different professions, and I'm not saying there's no profession that people, there's any profession, again, any role, profession, status, job, whatever, there's somebody that doesn't care and they're not doing right, no matter how much money they are getting paid. However, I do feel if there's more quality and focus is to when you going through your learning, and when there is a higher pay attached, that's when a lot of people do better.
They do better with better pay.
In my opinion. So if you look at certain professions that make even 3 times as much as a social worker, and they have schooling that's more rigorous, there's a higher likelihood. There is more thought into what they're doing. And not to say that it is 100%. It's not going to be guaranteed across the board with everyone. But that is the only thing I can come up with that right now as to how that could help. It won't, again, it's not the one and done solution. But also, when I said we all should have therapy. So why shouldn't a social worker or anyone else be, are they being, really looked at as far as their work and to their cases?
Yeah.
And is anyone supervising that? Anyone actually looking into that just to make sure that the right decisions are made?
Right.
For instance, when it comes to people's lives, and of course people have fell ill or even died, based off of mistakes or someone not doing something right. But also there are boards over them. Boards who actually, may watch it, or if you have complaints or something, and there are repercussions.
Because most of the time you got situations where you'll hear about where that social worker, their word is gold. Whatever they say, that's what the judge go with. That's what the state go with, because they trusting in the decision making of this social worker or something like that. So I'm gonna ask you, Ms. Lashika, should a person with a severe drug addiction, should they be disqualified from parenting again? Or a severe gambling addiction, should they be disqualified from parenting, or should they have to apply for this license to parent?
I can see where that's going, as far as, yes, a lot of broken homes because of drug or gambling addiction can lead to problems, in many different ways for kids. That's hard for me to say, only because if you have a drug addiction, has it interfered with taking care of your child? Or are you saying, and how did they find out about the drug addiction?
I mean, drug addiction
Like, I'm
is
trying
usually
to figure out, like, are you saying before they have a child? Are you getting drug tested before you have a child? That is just so many nuances with that.
Right.
That's why it is the way it is now, where once a parent start having issues with the law or issues with abandonment or neglect, and that's why their child was taken. But if you're saying to be able to have the child, again, that's an infringement, because who are you to try to give me a drug test in order to procreate?
either way, if you got a parent that's on drugs, that child is going without because that money is going to the drug dealer. And then when you got a parent that's gambling, that money is going to the casinos. That money is going to wherever they gamble their money at. And then that would be noticeable if like somebody was able to bring that to to the table, bring that to the forefront of attention that this parent right here is not doing right by this child because they either doing a drug or either gambling heavy, and that take away from the child. What you think of that, Saxo?
I mean, I feel like all of it comes down, and I know I sometimes have a tendency to take this a little left field, but I will bring this back around because what you said was this. You said it's basically when does power become control, right?
Right.
And that's really the discussion that we're having right now. We're having a discussion of how much power should they have, and that comes down to what kind of society do people want to have, and they got two choices really, because really the government can't make that decision for us. Do we want a free society or do we want a safe society? So a safe society look like kind of what China got, where it's built like a prison. They monitor and track everything you do. Nobody can do anything to you because everybody is watched and tracked. You're safe, but you're not free.
Right.
A free society looks like a jungle. You see what I'm saying? There's nobody watching anybody, so you're not safe. And so it comes down to people's individual philosophies of what do you value, freedom or safety. Like we grew up in a different era of more based on freedom. You see what I'm saying? We still grew up in the go out and play era. You see what I'm
Right.
saying? It was freedom, you know? And it's like, but now the things that we hear is more geared towards safety. It's like, nah, that's not happening now. Because we know that there are people who take children and there are people who target children. And so what I'm saying is, when it comes back to should they be allowed to decide whether you get past these tests for psychiatric reasons, gambling, or whatever that might be, do you want to be free or do you want to be safe? Because if you want freedom, then that means they can't. That means they can't make that decision for you.
Right.
That means no. Until I do something to lose my freedom, just like when somebody goes to jail, until I do something, no, you can't make that decision for me. And even after that, I'm still free until I make another mistake. You see what I'm saying? That's a free society, but in a safe society like China got, and if that's what people want, then they should be, free to make that decision. You know what I'm saying? But if they want the safety, then that means, the government comes in and they monitor everything you do to make sure you're meeting those quotas to not only get the license, but maintain it.
That's a good point you touched on. Should a child have rights before they're born?
Yes, depending on what sense you're saying, you're taking that, but yes.
Okay, and then what rights do you think a child should have before they're born?
So that is a really gray area because when you're born, you can't say you can't say anything. So it's kind of like in what term? Like I feel like we all have, our human rights. We all have, that should be maintained. But when you're going into like, I don't know, privacy rights, or you have a right to say something back to your parent. I mean, it's just hard to say as far as, because when you're born and up to a certain age, you're still under the care of a parent.
Right.
So, and age and maturity, which goes to the age, has a lot to do with. That's why the decisions are made from the parent and not the child. But I still feel like I wouldn't want to say all rights should be stripped, because you could be a 16-year-old and being abused, and if you remove all rights from the person, then you're saying that they don't have a right to protect themselves when a person trying to rape them, or they don't have the right to call the police because because they're being abused, because only the parent have the right. So that's why it's a fine line. It's a gray area, and it's hard to say exactly what, because there are so many situations that I would say, yes, a person should still be born with some rights, and then there are certain rights that should maintain with the person that is an adult to be able to provide that decision.
Would banning terrible parents, would that save our society? Would that make it better than it is right now?
It depends. I'm gonna say no, and my reason for saying that is who's judging the terrible parents?
Valid point.
Because right now we live in a society where we have some of the evilists at the top,
Yeah.
and these people are determining things that affect us, and they're not doing it from a pure heart. Too much selfishness, too much greed, too much. It's really sad at where we are. I really feel like when it comes to parenting, when it comes to rules, when it comes to laws, that yes, we should have people set in places for caseworkers, social workers, police. We can't even trust the police anymore. I mean, it's really sad because from the top all the way to the bottom, crooks,
Yeah.
crooks.
Crooks.
And some people are in the place that they need to be and they're doing what they can. But when you are outnumbered, overpowered by people and their evil ambitions, desires, and things that are just not things that are just not what we need in our society to make things better, to make these kids better. It's not enough focus on the kids. It's really not. When we look at what we see happening right now amongst the kids, something has happened. Something has really happened that these kids are totally emotionally empty. Empty. Taking lives means nothing to them. We are seeing this at a very, very rapid rate, and it's heartbreaking. It's sad, and it's what do we do? What did we do, and how did we get here?
Yeah.
And I will say this, and I will say this: we have parents that are not parenting, but you also have parents that are trying, and they don't have the resources that they need to get the help that they need. The
Right.
fathers are not fathering. And so you have these young boys growing up, and the music is raising them. And when the music is desensitizing them, that all they're talking about is killing, popping drugs, having sex. This is where we are. When you look at our music versus any other nationality, we have the worst.
Right.
We literally have the worst. You don't hear them promoting music, killing each other, just for sport, basically, because when it's all said and done, none of them own land.
Right.
None of them own houses. They don't own anything. What are we killing for? What is this about? The music. And yes, some of us are strong enough that we can listen to the music and never want to do a single thing that it says. But when these kids come up and these things are easily accessible to them, this is how we end up where we are. And it's we got to go back to being a village. But right now you can't be a village because these kids will kill you. I'm just being honest. I just saw, what was this, a couple of weekends ago, a young man shot his parents, both of them, for taking his phone.
Oh, wow.
Like, yeah. Thank
me.
God they didn't die, but he shot both his parents and a bystander, an innocent bystander, because they took his phone. This is what I'm saying. What do we do? It's sad that this is where we are now, but something has truly happened to these kids. And I'm talking about these kids, the age range really is right now 14 to 21 years old. They are doing the most.
We used to be understood as a Christian society, even though we know people would never really, you know what I mean? But it still gave people a moral code. You see what I'm saying? It's still something you could point to and say, this is how you should act. And so you got a lot of people who are not going by any moral code. There's nothing written for them to say, this is how you should act. You see what I'm saying? It's just a whole bunch of what you should not do and what you'll go to jail for if you do, or what your kids can get taken for if you do.
As a mother and a grandmother, I am 50 years old, and I do not see many women my age taking the initiative to make sure that they're giving these grandkids a substance. And what I mean by that, spending time with them. They're still doing the same things that their kids are running around doing. And that is a lot of what is missing. When I think about, how it was when I was growing up, the grandparents were grandparenting. Not, and I'm not saying raising the kids, but there's certain things, you get around grandma and, grandma not playing, this, when she say this, she mean this, and this is what you better do.
And
you know what I mean? And there was also a level of respect that nobody played with grandma. Nobody overstepped them boundaries with grandma. You knew your place.
That's true.
But see, now we have a generation of grandmothers who are not grandmothering.
Yeah.
Because I would truly say that there's something in a grandparent that gives these kids a substance that the parents don't have right away. You get what I'm saying? And I can say this because my mother was instilling something in my kids that I didn't have to instill in them. You know what I mean? Yes, I raised them to the best of my ability. Yes, I made sure that I was there, not just there, but I made sure that I nurtured them. I took care of them, but there was a certain substance in my mother that she was able to put something else inside of them. And that right there is what's missing in most of these grandmothers, because I don't have time for them kids. I got a life too. You have them kids. And don't get me wrong, some of that is true. But if you're not keeping the kids, if you're not watching the kids, then they gonna take the kids to Janet's friend, and Janet's friend got a man over there that likes to touch kids, and you know what I mean? Yeah. So much going on, and so there's a major disconnect when it comes to the family line. And if you're not, instilling certain things in these kids, and it starts young. Now, if you don't want to be a grandma until they turn 12, 13, well, you done lost them.
Right.
You done lost them.
Right.
It's certain things that it takes place when they are young. And when they miss that, so now you ain't got respect for mama. You ain't got respect for grandma, because grandma didn't have time for you. If grandma kept you, she told your mama, you better pick these kids up at 11, and you better pick them up at 11. And I mean that. No. In a sense, when kids hear that, they don't feel welcome.
Not at all. They don't feel like you want them around longer. Nothing of that. They don't feel like it's a warm thing. That's
exactly. True. So you know what comes upon them? That spirit of rejection.
Yeah.
And rejection causes you to act outwardly. It's an inward thing that you're dealing with, but it causes you to act out. So don't nobody care about me. I can do this. I'm gonna do this. Every time I try to say something, they ain't trying to hear me. I want this. I'm telling you, the family line is messed up.
Right.
The family line is messed up. Mothers don't want a mother. They want to run the streets. And this is the product that you get. This is the product that you get. And I will say this. And because they're not having a Christ foundation, because they're not trying to live morally, because I'm going to tell you, I'm being honest, it's hard to have a moral code if you do not have a Christian code. The Bible, people look at it, I will say this. Some people want to say it's a way to control people. No, it's stories in the Bible that you need to apply to your life. Those stories that happen, they happen for a reason. We're supposed to be learning. We're supposed to be learning from that. Like they say, BIBLE. Basic instructions before leaving Earth. Basic instructions. That's what the Bible is. And so we can't look at these things and say, oh, this is a control issue. No, this is either you're going to do this or this is going to happen type of issue. That's what it is. And you can't think
And
that, because you don't give these kids that kind of foundation, that you can just send them out into the world with a world full of people that care nothing about them, that don't care where they're going to land, don't care how they're going to turn out, don't care what they're going to make of themselves, don't care if they're going to be productive or non-productive. It starts with us. We have to put these kind of things in them in our home, so that when they do leave our home, the choices that they make, I will say this. I thank God that my sons and my daughters turned out good. But let me tell you what I used to tell my sons. I dare you leave my house and go get involved in something stupid and call me and think I'm going to take anything away from the mouths of my other kids to help you get out. I work too hard and I provide a life for you. You might not get everything that you want, but I promise you're going to have everything that you need. And you're going to get most of what you want. But if you leave my home and you go get involved in something stupid, don't call me. I'm not bailing you out. We have too many parents that won't pay for tutoring. They won't pay for extra lessons. They won't pay to keep them in sports, but will go bail their kids out of jail the second they get in trouble for something. Help me make sense of that.
That's deep, because that fall into my line of question is when I was going to ask, you think that the child deserve more like on the protection at all cost level, or do you think that it's more of a freedom matter more than government control type of thing?
We all have the freedom to do what we desire.
Right.
We have to be better at making better decisions. We have to be better at making them understand that there are consequences for the choices that we make. We have to be better at making sure and being intentional about letting them know, hey, this is the road you're going to go down. You want to go hang around with Johnny, you want to hang around Sean, and all they do is pack pistols and sell dope, and I'm telling you now, you're going to either end up in jail or hell. You have a choice. But see, when we're not having these conversations, when we're not showing these kids that this is what's going to happen, when we're not telling our kids, when you have a friend to tell you, hey man, I got an idea. I know this lick. Won't you come with me and go hit this lick? See, if you're not the parent that's telling your kids, when somebody tell you to let's go do something that you know you shouldn't do, and you go along with it, you're doomed. See, it's these kind of conversations that we're not having that's causing these kids to just think it's okay. You need to know that what your friend said was dumb. You need to know that where he's leading you is a path to destruction. And 9 times out of 10, it's not going to be him that's going to be in jail or in hell. It's going to be you. So these are the conversations that we have to have with our kids pre-teen, because this influence starts at school. And so we got to let them know, hey, this is not the way. Yeah. I see that girl every time I see her. She got shorts all up her tail. She, all her shirts is cut off. We have to have these conversations with our daughters. What are you doing? See, we have to parent and stop trying to be friends with the kids. We can be friends, but I'm your mother first. Because see, I don't want it to get twisted, because we need to have the kind of communication with our kids where they can feel comfortable talking to us about certain things. But they also need to know that there's a boundary, that when I'm talking to you, when I'm giving you wise instruction, when I am correcting you, I am your mother at this point. We can talk about your heartbreak later, but right now I got to tell you this right here that shouldn't be happening. Yeah. We got to get back to the basics. And until we do that, we will be continuing to go and deal with this lost generation who don't have the praying grandmothers anymore. Because I'm telling you, that really makes a difference. It really makes a difference. If nobody in your bloodline is praying for you, look at your bloodline and look at the chaos that you see. You can tell the families that have prayer warriors and the ones that do not. And I'm going to tell you now, there's a lot of good, nice people in the grave.